Hey everybody, Gordon Chavez here from GordonChavez.com, GordonChavez.tv, and now GordonChavez.radio. I'm excited to bring my radio show to you today. Today is the launch. It is the first show of many that are going to be coming to you. I have a special guest for you today. This guy, I met him about 4 years ago or so, and he has truly been a blessing in my life. He has taught me so much. He is my business partner. He is my mentor. The guy is a family man. He's got a beautiful family, a wife and 2 daughters. He is a 15-year Marine Corps vet, and at this point he is running a financial services company in beautiful San Diego, California. When I first started working with him, I didn't know a whole lot about finances, and the goal was to learn a little bit something about finances for myself and also to be able to help my family, of course. But I have learned so much more from this guy, so much more about in addition to the financial stuff, so much more about myself, so much more about mindset, so much more about personal growth and things like that. So he is truly a leader in the community. I highly recommend that you guys pull out a notepad and pen as you listen to this conversation, because we're going to be sharing some really great information. Mr. Karlo Salgado. So Karlo, can you please tell them a little bit about yourself, what you do, and maybe a touch on what we're going to talk about?
Hey, how you doing, man? Hey, it's a pleasure to be on, brother. I gotta say, I'm just honored to be in a relationship with you after all these years, and I've always admired kind of just who you are and what you do and your intention to always create value for others and make an impact. And so I'm grateful to be on. A little bit about myself. I am an entrepreneur in the financial services industry. I run a company by the name of Difference Financial and Insurance Services, where we teach people how money works, specializing in insurance products and retirement products, and just basically helping people have more peace of mind financially. So we serve people from all walks of life.
Nice. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for that compliment. And same goes for you, man. We met, maybe 4 years ago or so. And I have to say, since
Wow.
I mean, you really changed my life. And I thought I was doing all right before. And so just introducing, mindset and being able to go above and beyond just your normal steady growth that people do is huge for me. And so, and I know you're a huge family guy. You've got 2 beautiful young daughters, a beautiful wife. And I know that's like your world, and I can connect with that so much. And I feel the same way. So I appreciate that. So let's get into one of the questions here. One of the questions is, how long have you been actively working on yourself?
Great question. I would say probably around the age of, I'm 40 now, so I got into personal development around the age of 25, 26 years old when I started in entrepreneurship. I was in the Marine Corps. And I was always working on myself, maybe physically because of my career in the military and maybe playing sports. But in terms of working on my mindset, that didn't start till later in my life, maybe 25, 26 years old.
Mm.
So it's been maybe 15 plus years now.
Mm. Nice. And so, and the reason why I asked that is because I feel like people in general are decent for the most part, right? And people are always trying to get better generally. But I feel like just the way the system that we have in place through, Difference Financial, through the training that I've received from you in the last couple of years, it's more, I guess, intentional, I guess, if that kind of explains it. And so I wanted to kind of make that clear to people that, everybody wants to get better. Everybody wants to, have better lifestyle. Everybody wants to be happy or whatever. But most people seem to be on like autopilot, reacting to their circumstances. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Personal development, the reason I believe most people don't do it, it's for a couple of reasons. Number one is we don't know what we don't know, so sometimes we don't know that there is more access. There is more ways that we can improve our quality of life through working on our mindset, and another thing is ignorance is bliss, because it's difficult, if you're going to personally develop yourself, it does require a lot of self-reflection and you can't escape yourself, right? You have to deal with things on a personal and on emotional level, you know, that things that we've dealt with maybe throughout our lives. Um, you know, and so when you go into personal development, you're making a conscious choice that I have to face myself. You know, I have to, you know, I have to deal with my limitations. And by far, for me, one of the greatest challenges early on was accepting responsibility for everything in my life. Um, I think I think a lot of people can relate that we victimize ourselves a lot, you know, and I that was somebody, I was definitely that person. I didn't know it consciously at the time, but I played the blame game. You know, my life is not where I want to be because of this person, this situation, that situation, and these are just the cards I was dealt, and that's why my life is where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until personal development, reading books, going to seminars, you know, changing my associations, and I started realizing, you know what, I am the one that put myself here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the liberating aspect of that is because I put myself here, I can also pull myself out. And that was very much when I started taking total responsibility for my life. And then my life began to change. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
this is it. You know, and now that I've come to that realization, it's kind of a self-realized it's a spiritual process, you know, of self-realization. And I feel that, man, now that I've been able to get to a certain degree, I still got a lot of work to do, we all do. I want to now empower others with that. I now want to say, look, here's what worked for me, I want to help you with that as well. And that's really the whole, you know, that's the mission of my life, so to speak. And I use entrepreneurship as a platform to share that message.
Nice, nice. I love that. So it's changed your life, but now it's like on top of that, it's time to give back and share kind of what you've been able to do for yourself and everybody else, so that it can make a difference in the world in general. Uh,
Yes.
and I love the idea of just taking ownership, because if you don't own, you know, the bad, but also the good, you know, the bad becomes opportunities. Like you said, once you take ownership and responsibility, you can take the necessary steps to fix or change or adjust or just improve. But also the good in, you know, giving yourself credit and understanding your value, and knowing, you know, without obviously, you know, letting it get to your head too much, right? But understanding your value and honestly understanding your value. The next question is, how did you get started? You know, how did you go from, you know, I guess lack of awareness to awareness, and these new ways to kind of hack your brain and your mindset and all of that?
Great question. The power of association is how I got there.
Mm,
Um, I I met I met a person who was a friend I met in college. You know, his name was Dago Zuniga, and this guy at the point was, well, you know, I was going to school. I was trying to, you know, get better my life, maybe get a degree that would lead me to a good job. Um, at this point in my life, I hung around with other Marines who would just like to party and drink all the time and chase, you know, chase women, and you know, that was my life in my early 20s.
yeah.
And I knew at some point, okay, Carter, you have to grow up. And so I was seeking, I didn't know this about myself, but I was seeking something more. And then a person came into my life who I saw had a career, was doing well financially. And that person had an influence on me and encouraged me to look at entrepreneurship, which I knew nothing about at the time. You know, I'm a guy that barely graduated high school. I have a 2.0 GPA. I wasn't very academically gifted. I wasn't a good student at all. But I met a person who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time.
Yeah.
And so that's the power of a relationship where somebody, you know, because they work on themselves, can see something in you that you may not see in yourself until you become aware of that. You're like, oh, wow. And so to answer your question, it is the power of association. As the saying goes, is you become who you hang out with, right? If you hang around with four negative, broke, complaining people, and those are the people that influence you, there's a very high probability that you're probably the fifth person in that group. You know, if you also begin to associate with greatness or people that are working on themselves, who have a high identity, who are doing well in life, who have aspirations, and even though you may not have those traits yet, inevitably through time that will rub off on you, and you will pick up that frequency, you will pick up, you know, that language, and it will become your own.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I love that because that is something that I try to focus on, and I try to be very careful about who I'm spending my time with, and I have friends, I have family, I have all the whole circle of people that I interact with. However, I learned that if you want to be better at something, then you need to be around people that are already better at that something that you're trying. And it can be life, it can be a career, it can be sports. I mean, you put a young kid playing, say, basketball with a bunch of older kids that are better than he is. At first, he's going to struggle, but after months of consistency and working on himself, that kid is going to be a lot better than other kids that hang around with kids just their age. And so that's a great point. We understand it when we talk about it like that, but it seems like most people, they don't understand how that applies to life. It can apply to a whole bunch of other stuff, obviously, but we can also apply that to life. So that's a great point. Would you say that, in general, personal development is a huge part of who you are now versus, say, who you were in your 20s, as you described a minute ago?
100%, man. 100%. That's, I like to, to me, it gave birth to awareness for me. It's because it's like, what's that saying? And I learned this, I believe, from Tony Robbins, is that there's 4 stages of learning, right? Where you have unconscious incompetence is number 1. Unconscious incompetence is we don't know that we don't know, right? And that was me at 25. Like I didn't know that I didn't know that I had a limited, identity, that I had a lot of struggles. I was just, I was oblivious to it, and it wasn't until I moved into step 2, which was now I was conscious incompetence, which is now I know that I don't know. I was like, holy cow, there's a lot about myself that I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where I started reading the books and having the aha moments, and being around people that were playing the game of life at a deeper level, and being able to witness and experience certain things in the environment that I was at was just like, whoa, okay. And that moved me into step 3, which was, conscious competence, which was, it's kind of like when you're driving a car, conscious, when you first start driving, you can't really listen to the radio or have a conversation with the passenger, because conscious competence is like, well, hold on, man, I have to be focused on 10 and 2. I have to put, okay, gas, especially if you're driving the standard like I started. Okay, first gear, second gear. No, don't talk to me, man. I got to focus on this right now.
Yeah.
That's conscious competence, meaning that, I know, right? Now I know that I know. Okay. And then, as you develop, you start to rewire your subconscious mind. And that's a whole other conversation. But that moves us into step 4, which is unconscious competence, right? It's like now, for example, that we just know that we know, or like driving a car. So now I drive a car, even if I'm driving stick shift, I can be listening to audio, having a conversation. My mind is totally elsewhere, and my subconscious is put it in first and second and third. I don't even think about it. And that has a lot to do with, I think, the whole purpose of life, right? I think for me, entrepreneurship is a spiritual journey that allows me to work on my mind, because of the challenges that it gives me. It always humbles me. It always keeps me grounded. And the purpose of entrepreneurship is not so much for me the monetization, but other than increasing my self-awareness, increasing consciousness. Like how much can I develop this thing while I'm in the human body? And there's many ways people do it. I use entrepreneurship as a medium to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of throw in a couple questions just because I love what you're telling me. And you said something regarding the power of association and how you met someone that entered your life and almost kind of redirected you or something. You said it kind of gave birth to, I guess, to the new you, if understood correctly, right?
Yeah,
I was recently listening to TD Jakes on YouTube,
love
and
that guy.
yeah, man, great stuff. And TD Jakes said something similar to that. He said something like he was talking about, um, when you are going after some kind of improvement like that, it's almost like either the death of something else and the rebirth or birth of something new, or closing of certain doors and opening of new doors. And he says it almost always involves what he called a midwife. I believe that's what they call it. The midwives are the people that help women give birth to their children, right? And
Yeah,
he said in that way, it's somebody that comes into your life. And he said it can be just new, it can be somebody you don't necessarily know. For example, with technology these days, I mean, people are getting mentored by all kinds of people online that they've never even met, right? They're just learning and feeding off of the information being shared online. And so, but it's usually caused by somebody who enters your life and almost like reveals all this new information or new awareness to you, and the old you starts to die off and a new you is being born, and it's almost like you've been redirected on a new path. And it's like, okay, now instead of just going straight like we were, now we're going to veer to the right a little bit or to the left a little, because maybe that future is so much brighter or whatever the case. And what do you think of it? Does that sound kind of like what you were saying?
absolutely. I think and I love TD Jakes. He's an amazing storyteller, and he paints a lot of pictures for anyone to really understand. Um, and exactly that point, like a midwife, it's I was, and I was laboring in my life. I was broke. I was struggling, and the reason I was not progressing is because that level of awareness that I was at 25, 26 is what is what I had this ceiling on me that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I I was a victim of that pain, and so I needed kind of that midwife, that coach, right? That's someone to kind of say, buckle up, Dorothy, keep pushing. Pain is a great teacher for me to change my perspective. And once I was able to say, oh, this is happening for me, not to me,
You said
and then I was able to shift.
pain is a what?
Is a great teacher.
Teacher. Yeah. Yeah. No.
Yes,
Yeah. And see, in that there is something that I have to say I learned from you. You you were like, you were the force that entered my life and said, okay, look, there's more out there, because it's almost like we have this bubble that's like translucent. We can kind of see through it, but we can't really see what's out there. And so it seems like most people are just like, I'm good where I'm at. I'm not necessarily going to try to expand my bubble and see what's on the other side. And it's almost like human nature teaches us to fear the unknown, I guess. And so when you have that time where something is revealed to you, whether it's a person coming into your life and teaching you and showing you and doing, mentoring you, or you're just, you become aware of new, information or whatever the case. When you go to make these changes in your life, it seems like there's always pain, and for the most part, I was thinking about this recently. I feel like I grew up hoping to one day get to a point where life was easy. You hear people say, I've made it or something like that, and they've kind of reached their goals or whatever it might be. But you hear that word, I've made it. And I always thought, at some point I'm going to get to a point in life where where I can just kind of coast, and that is not the case. And unless you want to be mediocre, I guess, you know, I don't know. But something in me has always wanted me to grow, and that always brings on some kind of new challenge. You want to do something new, and boom, a challenge hits you. You don't even, I mean, doesn't even have to be related to what you're doing all the time. A challenge hits you and you're like, well, it's like, are you going to just give up on that challenge or on your goals because of this new challenge, or are you going to go through it? And I remember you saying all the time, embrace the suck, embrace the suck. And I love that, because I'm getting to that point, you know, where I want to feel the pain, because I know that it means that I'm growing. And so I want to thank you for that, because it seems like a simple thing, but it took a lot of work for me to get to where I understand it now. And I'm not saying I fully understand it yet. I'm still working on it, and I'm getting better at saying, you know what, this is a new challenge. I just got to get past it, because it's part of the growth. And so as far as people not, I guess, people not necessarily going beyond their bubble, I guess, or their certain level of awareness, why do you think most people just don't do it and kind of just settle? It seems like people settle. You look at a little kid when they're 4, 5, 6 years old, and they're running around the house like they're a superhero, and they really believe that. They believe they're Spider-Man, or they believe they're Superman, or whatever the case. And then as they get a little older, things change, and maybe influence from parents or teachers or whoever is in their world, you know, now they start thinking more like, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer. You know, the old school, I want to be a doctor, lawyer. Nowadays, it's probably more like, I want to be an influencer online. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to, whatever the case, but they're still big dreams. And then at some point, it seems like they settle, and they work, you know, say retail for the rest of their life, which I'm not knocking, but if people have so much more potential, why do you think more people don't go after it?
Great question. And it is kind of the epidemic of our current state of humanity, right? Um, you know, and simply said, I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at this. I think, you know, for me, what just comes to mind first is we're addicted to comfort. You know, we all have an ego, all of us do. And our ego, the purpose of our ego is to keep us safe from fear, to keep us safe from pain. And you know, what we were just talking about is pain as a teacher. It's we don't want to experience pain, you know. And if you want to have, you know, or be something that you've never done, right? If you want to, if like, man, I make 30,000 a year, I want to make 100,000 a year. You know, I barely graduated high school. I want to go start my own company. If you're gonna do something that you've never done, right, then you're going to have to start behaving in ways that you've never experienced personally, and that really sucks. It's really painful, right? You know, and so that is what I'm talking about. Is we need uncertainty, because too many people are addicted to certainty. I need to know where my next check is, right? I need to know what tomorrow's going to be like. I need to know what next week's going to be like, next year. And so we get stuck in this, what Napoleon Hill talks about in the book Outwitting the Devil, a hypnotic rhythm, right? We become hypnotized by a rhythm of life because it keeps us safe and it gives us a feeling of security, right? But when we realize that we're all going to die anyway, you start to connect the dots and be like, you know what, I'm going to die anyway. Why not go for it? Yeah. You know, and I think that's the biggest thing for me. The motivator is like, look, we're all going to go through pain. Like Robert Kiyosaki says this: if you only do in life what is easy, then life inevitably gets hard. But if you consciously choose to do what is hard, then life inevitably gets easier. And I really, that's been a true experience for me. You know, I don't like going through pain as much as the next person. You know, I'm not some glutton for pain here. Like, I'm not sadistic. Yeah. But when I'm going through it, and we're always going through stuff, right? If you don't have challenges in your life right now, then you don't have a heartbeat, right? we all have it, and when we're going through it, I'm as human as anyone else. When I'm going through it, I'm like, oh my God, this is the last thing I need to be dealing with right now. And I feel the stress. And what I'm starting to realize now, that it is happening for me, not to me. I'll give you an analogy, right? I went to a meditation training this past Saturday, and I really want to get more strong as a meditator.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the teacher was talking about, now just observe your thoughts, and I was like, okay. And he's like, so just look at your thought, like think of it like a cloud, like as it comes into your thought process, you see that thought, but don't identify with it, just observe it and just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've applied that now to pain. Like when I'm going through the suck, as you talk about, when I'm embracing the suck and I'm like, oh man, instead of identifying with that emotion, I just observe it and be like, interesting that I feel fear right now, interesting that I feel anxiety right now. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't attach myself to the emotion like I used to. I just kind of observe it, I feel it, and like a cloud, I let it go by, and I take the action anyway, because I've now become aware enough that in order for me to get to the next level of my own journey, my own personal evolution, this is my current boundary that I have to break through if I want to get to the next level on the ladder, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I love what you're saying, because this morning actually I was my mindset was like, I'm getting ready to launch the radio show. I got the first show, and I'm like, I hope, obviously, I hope everything goes smooth. And then I'm hit with some challenges. Oh my goodness, now what am I going to do? How am I going to, and I felt inside, I guess, fear, but also I was excited. I was excited to like overcome the challenges and just make the show happen. And here we are. And I appreciate your flexibility and being able to work with me on this. And we made some adjustments and things like that to be able to do this. But it was almost like there was an inner struggle or inner battle within me where I wanted to get stressed out, maybe, and 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 feeling that stress or whatever would have just led to wanting to give up or wanting to reschedule or change, or just not doing it today. But part of it was like, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to just make it happen, because I already said I was going to do it. People are expecting to see it and hear it or whatever the case, and I can't just give up on it, or I can't reschedule. I can't, so I made it happen. And it's crazy how that happens inside, because a few years ago, I probably would have said, you know what, let's just reschedule. Let's wait for the circumstances to be perfect. And circumstances are never perfect, unfortunately, and that's no matter what you do. And so I wanted to ask you, what role do you think like our natural desire to be safe plays in all of this? What would you say? Because we, as human beings, as animals, we want to be safe, right? And what do you think that does to this whole going over?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think that's where the current stand of humanity is. Um, I got a cough, excuse me.
And then I'm looking down a couple times because we have a few listeners here, and to the listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in. I don't want you to think that I'm being distracted, Carlo. But back to what we were saying, just the desire to be safe, I guess, or the people wanting to be
Yeah, it's, safety is a natural animalistic process, right? We need the emotion of fear,
safe.
so this is why challenging that boundary is important. So if I'm walking, safety is important, and the emotion of fear is important, because if I'm walking on a cliff and it's maybe pitch black dark outside, fear helps me, because I don't want to be careless, because I can fall over the cliff and I can lose my life. So that's fear is necessary at that point.
Yeah.
However, the flip side to that, how much, for the things that we're trying to do in life, how much does fear get in the way of us doing what we need to do? And sometimes we take the safe route out, right? As most people play the game of life just to be safe,
Yeah.
right? But that's not how winning is done, right? The people that kind of break through to the other side is they voluntarily they get to the point where, like, you know what, you can't have bravery. I mean, courage would never exist if it wasn't for someone that overcomes fear,
Mm.
and it's like you said this morning, right? You say, you're whatever you were dealing with, whether it's your car breaking down, you just had setback, and at that point you had to make a decision,
Yeah.
right? And I just did a video on this the other day. Is when you make that decision, or when you make a choice and you break down the psychology or the biology of a choice, it's really broken down in three things. And we all do this, whether we do it consciously or unconsciously. It's number one is you get to choose what to focus on.
Mm.
So this morning when things broke down and things weren't working, and okay, now I'm challenged. Well, you could focus on what's not working and say, you know what, it's not going to work out today. Here's why it's not going to work out: because my truck broke down, blah, blah, blah. Or you can focus on what is working, which is I can still make this happen. I can adapt. I can overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's what leads to. So number one, you choose what to focus on. Number two, what is the meaning? And the meaning that you took from this morning was it's okay. Right. I can deal with this. I can recover from this, and I can find another way to get the job done.
Yeah.
And that was the action that you took. Right. So that's a question I always have for listeners when I think about the choices you make. And we all make choices on a daily basis. And that's the single-handedly the greatest secret, the greatest power that we all have, is we all can focus on whatever we want to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So you can focus on what is working in your life, or you can focus on what's not working in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, not me, not you, nobody, we're all kind of that own personal God to our mentality. No one can make you focus on anything that you don't want to focus on.
Yeah.
So if that's really true, and it is, shouldn't we try to work on ourselves so that we can focus on what is working, on what we can achieve, on what is our potential versus what our limitations are, what our lacks are? That's a powerful choice that we all have the ability to make. And then we extract the right meaning from that. So other people can look at, and we're just using your example this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Other people can go, there's many people that probably went through something similar today in some form or fashion, some sort of setback. And the meaning they got from that was more stress, more anxiety. "Ah, this is why my life sucks. And they say it to themselves, my life is shit. My life sucks. This is why I'm broke. And the meaning that they got from that is they just went into more victimization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it reaffirms why they are where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You chose a different meaning. You said, you know what? I get this is happening, but the meaning I take from it, right? A setback is nothing more than an opportunity for a comeback. I will overcome this. I will adapt and overcome. Let's move forward because the job's got to get done. That's awareness, right? And you took the right action. So it's a we all have a self-fulfilling prophecy mechanism, and that is the 6 inches between our ears. And that's the difference between winning and losing. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does. And that's something that I have been focused on in my life is being more conscious of the choices or the decisions that I make, and even taking it to the next level, like you said, as far as the meaning that I attach to it or that I get from it. As far as choices go, um, here in the United States, most people, if you talk about things like lifestyle, people attach lifestyle to money or to your income or whatever. So and so has a great lifestyle because they earn so much a year, or they whatever. This is how much money. This is their net worth, or whatever the case. What would you say about that? Because I feel like me personally, I'm getting to the point where I'm learning to enjoy life and not even, because not even it depending on things like that, not it depending on life. And I guess I feel like a lot of people me including still now, but more so before, um, seem to gauge the quality of my lifestyle based on income. And what would you say as far as how choice is related to all of that?
Oh wow, yeah, that's man, that's a deep question when we talk about it. I mean, that goes into what I do as a trade,
Yeah,
but it's also synonymous with the content of this conversation.
yeah,
Um, money, our relationship to money says a lot about our psychology,
yeah.
right? And let's look at it this way. You know, um, you let's say, if people are aspiring to be in an intimate relationship with a significant other,
Hmm.
and let's just use you, Gordon. Let's say, if you were going to be in a relationship, and I know you're married, but let's just play an example with me. If you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, and let's say you were pursuing a woman, and you were obsessed, like
Hmm.
I'm obsessed with her.
Yeah,
Um, how far do you think that relationship will go, or do you think she might be like stalker alert, or this is creepy?
yeah, yeah. No, yeah. You
Yeah,
that vibe you put out instantly gets caught. Yeah.
exactly, right. And that's also the same with money,
Mm.
right? So we have to really analyze our own personal paradigm and relationship with money. If you're obsessed with it, then like any other relationship, it only leads to terrible results, and money might put a restraining order on you,
Mm.
right? If you if you're in a relationship with money and you keep saying, what, I don't care about money, I don't care about you, I don't love you, right? If I told that to my wife, I don't care about you, I don't love you,
Mm.
she's probably not going to stick around very long,
Yeah.
and neither is money,
Mm.
right? But if I have a beneficial relationship with money where I respect money, I appreciate money, right? We have a mutual relationship where I use money accordingly, which is I'm more focused on giving it, spending less than what I earn.
Mm.
There's a respectable ability there. And I appreciate money,
Mm.
right? And I love money, right? Not because it's my idol, not because but it's something that I'm detached from. I have a great relationship with it, and I respect it, and I appreciate it. And I tell money, I appreciate you. Thank you for paying my bills. Thank you for paying my rent or my mortgage. Thank you for putting food on my table.
Yeah.
And you know what money is going to say? Money's going to say, oh, I appreciate your appreciation, Carlo. Here's a little bit more for you, my friend, right? And money tends to come in abundance, right? And I think that's how we got to look at it is money in and of itself is worthless. It's our own psychology, our own emotional relationship with it that determines how it comes in and out of our experience.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. 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 And I wanted to also kind of ask you, what do you think about people that'll say that money is, we've heard it, money is the root of all evil, or money, makes people do bad things, or whatever the case. What would you say to somebody like that, that's so ingrained in their mind, thinking that way, that sometimes it even just comes out automatically in just normal conversation?
Yeah, I think that's I would encourage that person to really analyze that belief system.
Mm.
And I'm going to ask them when people say, money's the root of all evil. I'll say, how is that working out in your life? What's your personal relationship with money now?
Mm.
And they may have a very negative relationship with money.
Mm.
So money is not the root of all evil, right?
Yeah.
The addiction or obsession with it is,
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Because money is merely a magnifying tool. It only makes you more of who you are or what you already are. I mean, if you're a jerk, you're just a bigger jerk with money, but if you're a giving person and you love to serve people, then you're just someone that can give at a higher level.
Mm. Mhm.
It is a frequency, not to get all spiritual on you, but it is a frequency. Like if you want to hear the music on 98.7 on your FM dial on your car,
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to tune your tuner in your car to tap into that frequency, that radio wave that you cannot see. You can't hear what's broadcasted on 98.7 if I'm on 93.3, if I want to hear the music on that station.
Mm-hmm.
The same is true with money, right? Money is a frequency, right? And if you want to get more of it, then you have to tune into it.
Mm-hmm.
So people say, well, how do you do that? Gratitude, appreciation, giving thanks for, because money is a form of abundance, right? You know, and so I tell people like, well, my money situation is really not good right now. So I want to say, well, what is good in your life? Man, my relationship with my wife is really good. My relationship with my children, my relationship with, you know, the way I have these really great relationships. Why are those relationships great? Because I appreciate them, because I feel good to give to those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now think about how those relationships are working, and what you're actually physically doing when we make choices around those relationships, right? What are you focused on in those relationships? What do those relationships mean? And what actions are you taking? Ah, okay. Now let's look at that and say, are you doing that with money? What are you focused on with money? Because if I'm in a relationship with you, Gordon,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm focused on the goodness of our relationship. I'm not focused on what you're not bringing to the table. You know, imagine if I was like, you know, if I always focused on Gordon's lacks and you focused on mine, we would not be in good harmony with each other.
Yeah, yeah,
But
definitely.
we have a great relationship, so we appreciate what we do bring to the table, the good things that we bring. Think about that with money, right? If I have $100 in my pocket and that's all I have to my name, my focus can be, you know what? I can look at it good and bad. Oh my God, all I have is $100 to my name. I'm so broke. You know, what am I gonna do? I'm depressed. Then I start focusing on what's missing. But if I focus on the good, man, you know what? I have $100 to my name. I can invest this money. I can help somebody else. You know, what could I do to make this $100 turn into $200? How can I serve somebody? And I can put the emotion of gratitude and appreciation to that $100 and make it multiply. You
Nice.
know, and I know it sounds a little bit, you know, I know it sounds a little bit utopic, right? Utopia, right? Pollyanna,
Mm.
but it took me years to get to this point of thinking. You
Yeah,
know, and I think that's, you know, it takes, so it's not going to happen overnight. It didn't happen for me overnight. It took a lot of failure. It took a lot of struggle. It took a lot of rewiring. But I was always said, I'm going to figure this out.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And so, Carlo, thank you so much, man. Out of respect for your time and just appreciation for you to take the time to invest in me and give your time to me and come on the show with me. Um, we only have about 5 minutes now, a little less. I want to give the listeners real practical tools on how they can go about, you know, this, I guess some steps, obviously without going too deep into it, but some steps on how they can make changes, what to expect, and how to just keep going, I guess. What would you say to people, you know, if you were able to share that with them?
In terms of like, is it in terms of personal development or?
Yeah, just general personal development. I want to have a better life. You know, like I was listening. Remember, I don't know if you saw Thomas's video on Instagram recently where he was saying, "I fear being the same exact person that I am today, say in 5 years or something like that." And I love that because he's so passionate about growing in life in general and just becoming a better version of himself. So somebody that just wants to grow personally, obviously that's going to lead to a better life, but what are some of the steps that they can take to just start moving in that direction?
Great question. I would encourage people to move into an uncomfortable position willingly, whatever that is, whether it's look for a new job, get out of that, you know, get out of that relationship, start that business, make the move, because deep down, you know, if you do that, you take that massive action, you know, there's no turning back.
Mm.
And move into that uncomfortable position, knowing that you're going to embrace the suck, There's going to be it's going to be a roller coaster, but I promise you, your present situation is not your final destination, right? Because the purpose of life is not about what you get, it's about who you become. And the more that you become and you tap into your potential, the more that you get. It's very fascinating, right? And so I'm telling you that if you want more, but you're unwilling to go through the challenges of the change, then you do so at your own peril, and you will never get what you want in life, right? Because we're not taking any of the stuff with us here in the human experience. The only thing we take with us is our consciousness, our awareness. And so what's going on the outside is a reflection of what's going on the inside of us. And I love the fact that we can challenge ourselves and embrace the suck. In doing so, we become much more, and we feel so much prouder of ourselves, and we increase the emotion of deserve. Now you feel like you deserve it, therefore you will get it.
Yeah. Nice.
Hope that makes sense.
It perfect sense. Yeah, thank you so much. So for people out there, just so that they know where to find me personally, GordonChavez.com. GordonChavez.tv will take you to the YouTube channel. This is going to be prepared for YouTube for podcasts, but to catch it live, you have to come on the Station Head app on your iPhone, iPad, or whatever. Search Station Head, search Gordon Chavez. You can catch the show live, but if not, YouTube and other podcast avenues. But Karlo, where can people find you? Where can they search you out, say online or whatever, or just engage with you a little bit more if they wanted to do that?
I appreciate that opportunity, man. Yeah, you can. I'm on social media, Karlo Salgado, Karlo, last name Salgado, SALG as in golf, ADO. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I also have a podcast that I'm developing myself, titled Mindset Evolved, that you can find in the iTunes, in the podcast app. I also have a YouTube channel where I'm always putting out content. And like Gordon, I'm also growing, in this regard as well, just to be able to share more messages of hope and opportunity. So Gordon, I appreciate, man. It's an honor to be a guest on your show, and this is your first show, man. I appreciate you, man, and I wish you success with this platform.
Likewise, Ben. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you as well.